As you see, the parachute still attached to the Soyuz MS-19 and several of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters nearby to begin the process of safing the vehicle and extracting the crew. We expect, as is normally the case, for the video to be discontinued for a short period of time so that the TV truck repositions itself by the spacecraft, at which point we will regain video from the landing site. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to receive video from the landing site in Kazakhstan some 5 minutes after the touchdown of Soyuz MS-19 about 90 miles to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan, 2 hours and 20 minutes before sunset there. Russian Mi-8 helicopters have continued the process of landing in the neighborhood of the spacecraft. Other support personnel and all-terrain vehicles are moving up to the spacecraft to begin erecting an inflatable medical tent within which the crew will be brought after a short time outside of the Soyuz to get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits and into more comfortable flight clothing, as well as to undergo initial medical testing before they board those helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda to the northeast, where the crew ultimately will split up several hours from now. Mark Vande Hei boarding a NASA jet to return to Houston. Anton Shkaplerov and Pyotr Dubrov boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft headed for their training base at Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow.
station on to the connectivity readings for the aft.
This is Mission Control Houston, receiving word from the search and recovery forces that the Soyuz landed and was pulled over by the wind. That is not unusual. So the Soyuz is on its side, and the search and recovery personnel are beginning the process of safing the vehicle. The Soyuz on its side. At which point we fully expect that we will regain the television signal to see the crew. Central Time, 7:28 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:28 p.m. at the landing site southeast of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan. The pulling the parachute over and in turn pulling the Soyuz on its side following touch. Vande Hei coming home with the record for the longest single space.
Remember me? Oh, sure. And thank you. Not too many people here. This is great. Everything is fine. Take the measurements, please. Do you want glasses? Sure, why not?
Anton Shkaplerov, the Soyuz commander, having completed his 4th flight into space and to the International Space Station. 708 days in space for Shkaplerov, 7th on the all-time endurance list. And as we mentioned earlier, the Soyuz on its side, it did land upright, but was pulled over on its side as its large main parachute was caught by the wind and pulled the Soyuz over.
And we'll take some more measurements. And how are you feeling? Oh, great people here. It's a pleasure to see you. It's like we never left. You saw me off and now you're seeing me back. So how did the descent go? Oh, everything went nominal. The helicopters found us very quickly, just as the chute opened, and then the helicopters were found. I would like to thank everybody who has come here to attend the landing, all the search and rescue people for very well coordinated work. It's complicated work, and we're so glad that there are people here who know the job and they're high level at doing everything that is possible in their complex work.
А, еще? А мы тут не снимаем. Мне просто неудобно давление.
Сергей Константинович. Спасибо.
And congratulations. Oh, thank you.
Вот это, по-моему, давление нравится. Холодно?
Не, отлично, отлично. А?
Are you cold? No, everything is fine. Would you like some tea with lemon? Or with rose hips? That's great.
Там что, манго заказывает?
Да, как это нам Вадим Владимирович не передал. Мы с цитрусовыми.
Да, командир, который с тобой на связи.
Добрый день.
О, добрый день. Спасибо огромное. Рад был, что так рано нас нашли.
Good to see you. I was so glad that they found us so quickly.
Андрей, не Антон.
Andrei and Anton. It's a pleasure to see you here.
Спасибо, спасибо.
And thank you for your work and thank you for your help.
Как ты? Да ничего. Ну ладно. Как сам? А есть какая-нибудь салфетки? All good. Thank you.
Не просили второй замер? Сказали? Без тебя?
Руслан, а мне надо передать письмо. Какое есть? Сергей, он там с парашютами занимается.
Сергей?
Олег просил один. У него фамилия такая крутая, сапер.
Знаю.
Лысый такой.
Знаю.
Классный. Из мод.
There's a letter I need to give to that person. Yeah, we'll find him.
А, некрасиво, оказывается. Сейчас давление посмотрим. Сейчас меряем.
We'll just take a few measurements here and then.
This is Mission Control Houston. Some 24 minutes following the landing of the Soyuz MS-19, you see RSC Energia and search and recovery personnel working on the continuing extraction of the other two crew members, Mark Van de Heij and Pyotr Dubrov. Anton Shkaplerov was first out, as is typically the case, with the Soyuz commander occupying the center seat. He will always be extracted first to open a pathway, if you will, for the extraction of the other two crew members. And Pyotr Dubrov, outside of the Soyuz capsule, 355 days in space. He and Mark Van de Heij having launched together last April 9th.
I wouldn't mind flying some more.
А, Руслан, скажите, часы у меня слетели где-то в районе центрального пояса. Да.
I think my watch fell off and it's there somewhere. And the helicopters are set up over there.
Здесь. Что, пора помощь оказать американцам?
В смысле? Сигнал не идет вам?
Давай, туда.
Туда.
Сейчас давление померим.
Are you getting the signal? We'll be done shortly. I can see him.
Пожалуйста, у меня вон это. Сейчас, просьба не снимать, мы его перенесем. Да, прямо с кресла возьмите. Да.
We'll relocate them together with the chairs and we can wrap up here.
Отправился?
Да.
Хорошо у них там документы.
Да.
And NASA astronaut Mark Van de Heij now out of the Soyuz spacecraft.
Это точно, пролетели полгода, блядь. Все успел сделать, или последний 2 дня? Как всегда, не хватило А? Здорово, дорогой.
Последняя ночь или проход?
The last night of the flight, we were on the cupola.
Второй раз, да.
Is this the second measurement? Yes, it is.
Какие?
Ваши причины. Дальше заказывал.
Is that my hat? Did my hat grow?
Hat. We'll get you your hat. I don't know where your hat is. You can wear
Yeah,
that
just give that to
one.
him.
Can you
Trying to unit method.
I would like
Чай поди.
There should be some baseball caps. Baseball caps in my. In the blue bag?
Might be in blue bag, not in the red bag. Yeah, blue bag.
I'm pretty sure I left some.
For this one out, you take the cap off. It goes on your chin first.
We gotta get the chin on though.
Хорошо.
I don't want the glasses. It's too beautiful out here.
You can take glasses.
Don't move, don't move. Is there any tea? Yes, sure. And let's find a cup. I think we have some disposable cups there. The tea was very good.
Хорошо.
We'll show on the big screen. Everything is ready.
А, круто.
The cameras come from both sides. Oh, I feel like a star. And here's some people from Ministry of Defense. They can see you, and so you're welcome to
Случай передаю привет.
send hello. So now that I'm on the ground, I am sending my regards from the ground rather than from space. The weather is beautiful. Everything went nominal. No injuries. Nobody was hurt. Even though during the training expecting the landing, they told us that the weather was going to be bad, but the weather was perfect and everything is according to plan. Now we are going to proceed to rehabilitate from the flight.
Спрятался.
A
little more than 30 minutes after the Soyuz landed on the steppe of Kazakhstan, right on target. The 3 crew members are out, enjoying the smell of fresh air. For Van de Heij and Dubrov, the sights and sounds of planet Earth for the first time in a year.
Николай Ефимович, определили, кто понесет. Я. Так. Ну, а кто еще?
And now we can relocate them. We need 4 people.
Можете привет передать. Давайте в крайних, чтобы они будут тест делать. Давайте, Леня, тест будут делать. Еще одного. Леня, давай. Давай удочку.
Here, let's move the commander. I want people from Khabarovsk to see me. All my friends are there. And I'm saying hello to all my friends.
Один сюда, вперед.
And if everybody is ready, no need to hurry, but let's get going. We need to turn them around.
Shkaplerov being carried into the nearby inflatable medical tent to Russian Mi-8 helicopters in the background. He'll be followed shortly by Vanderhei and Dubrov. They'll get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits into more comfortable flight suits and will board the helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to Karaganda, the staging city, where the crew will split up at that point. Vanderhei flying on a NASA jet back to Houston, the 2 cosmonauts returning to Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow.
What's that? Hey, hello everybody.
All 3 crew members now in that medical tent. They'll undergo initial medical testing. The helicopter flight from the landing site back to Karaganda is about 2 hours in duration. And you can see the descent module on its side. And the view on the front screen of the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside Moscow, welcoming back Mark Vanderhei after his year-long mission on the International Space Station. This is Mission Control Houston. Just to recap, the 3 crew members of Expedition 66, Mark Vanderhei of NASA and Russian cosmonauts Anton Shkaplerov and Pyotr Dubrov, departed the International Space Station at 2:21 a.m. Central Time, 3:21 a.m. Eastern Time. They undocked their Soyuz MS-19 spacecraft from the Rassvet module of the International Space Station, backed away to enable Pyotr Dubrov to conduct digital still photography and videography of the Russian segment of the station before a separation maneuver to phase away from the international outpost. A few hours later, the deorbit burn was executed by the crew to slow their spacecraft down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit for its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere and a pinpoint landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 6:28 a.m. Central Time, 7:28 a.m. Eastern, 5:28 p.m. Kazakhstan time, about 2 hours and 20 minutes prior to sunset, local time at the landing site. The Soyuz was pulled over onto its side, which is not unusual, by the wind conditions at the landing site, but the landing conditions were near ideal for late March, with temperatures in the mid-40s, moderate winds, and clear skies. The three crew members quickly extracted from the Soyuz, had a few minutes in chairs that were set up by the capsule to begin a readaptation to a gravity environment for Van der Heij and Dubrov, the first sensations of gravity in a year since they were launched on April 9th, 2021 on the Soyuz MS-18 spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. They are now all in a inflatable medical tent near the capsule, where they're going to be helped out of their Sokol launch and entry suits into flight suits, and a 2-hour flight back to the airport in Karaganda to the northeast of the landing site, where Van der Heij will board a NASA jet for the flight back to Houston. Shkaplerov and Dubrov will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft to return to their homes at their training base at Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. On board the International Space Station, the undocking of Van der Heij, Dubrov, and Shkaplerov marked the end of Expedition 66 and the formal beginning of Expedition 67 under the command of NASA astronaut Tom Marshburn, joined by NASA astronauts Raja Chari and Kayla Barron, European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer, and Russian cosmonauts Oleg Artemiev, Denis Matveyev, and Sergei Korsakov. Fresh off of the landing of Van der Heij, Dubrov, and Shkaplerov, next up for the International Space Station is the expected launch of the first private astronaut mission through Axiom Space on a SpaceX Crew Dragon, the Endeavour, from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida no earlier than April 6th, with the commander of that mission, former NASA astronaut Mike Lopez Alegria, pilot Larry Connor, and crewmates Eitan Stibbe of Israel and Mark Pathy of Canada, who will fly to the space station for a 10-day mission. Again, a private astronaut mission opening new ground for the commercialization of low Earth orbit.
Can you hear me?
This is Mission Control Houston. It has been not quite an hour since the landing of the Soyuz MS-19 on the steppe of Kazakhstan, a flawless entry and landing for NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei and Russian cosmonauts Anton Shkaplerov and Pyotr Dubrov, bringing to an end almost a year in space for Vande Hei and Dubrov at 355 days, a journey of 150.6 million miles. The crew touching down at 6:28 a.m. Central Time, 7:28 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:28 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. The crew quickly extracted from the Soyuz, now in a nearby inflatable medical tent, getting out of their Sokol launch and entry suits into more comfortable clothing, and they'll board Russian Mi-8 helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to Karaganda, the staging city, to the northeast of the landing site, where they will board individual planes of the two cosmonauts to fly back to Star City, Russia, on a Gagarin Cosmonaut Center plane. Mark Vande Hei to board a NASA jet with NASA support personnel for the flight back to Houston. All of the events throughout the course of the night and the overnight hours went by the book, no issues whatsoever. The Soyuz safely home with the 3 crew members. Mark Vande Hei home, holding the single U.S. spaceflight record now of 355 days in space, eclipsing the former record held by former astronaut Scott Kelly. So with that, we'll wrap up our coverage for this morning. The Soyuz MS-19 crew, Expedition 66 now at an end, Expedition 67 underway on the International Space Station under the command of NASA astronaut Tom Marshburn. Mark Vande Hei safely back on Earth. Thanks for joining us throughout the course of the night. This is Mission Control Houston.
Joining us for the landing of the 3 crew members aboard the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft, NASA astronaut Jessica Meir, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Skropochka, and NASA astronaut Andrew Morgan. After undocking at 8:53 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time from the Zvezda module aboard the International Space Station, the Soyuz is approaching the 32-kilometer distance away from the station, where it will conduct its deorbit burn, scheduled for 11:22 p.m. Central Time. Tonight, we'll be looking forward to the landing, scheduled for 12:16 a.m. Central Time on April 17th. I'm Leah Cheshire of NASA, and we're live in the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Houston, Texas at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Teams on the ground tonight are being led by Flight Director Marcos Flores. To his right, you can see Capcom Andreas Mogensen, a European Space Agency astronaut. He's communicating with the astronauts still aboard the station. Meanwhile, the visiting vehicle officer, or Mike Campion, is keeping tabs of everything happening with the Soyuz vehicle now on its way home. You've got a live look here from the balcony of the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov. This is a town outside of Moscow that where the team will be controlling all of tonight's landing operations. Both the Houston and Moscow flight control teams are fully focused on the landing of the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft, currently almost 19 miles away from the space station. Inside that spacecraft are NASA's Jessica Meir and Andrew Morgan, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Skripochka, commander of the Soyuz spacecraft. Meanwhile, the landing team here on Earth is preparing to depart aboard helicopters for the landing site from the airfield in Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan. The Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft that will serve as a sort of command and control center, relaying voice and data once the Soyuz is in range, has already departed Baikonur and is en route to the landing site about 2.5 hours away. After Soyuz hatch closure at 5:44 p.m. Central Time tonight, the crew performed leak checks and system checks, ensuring their spacecraft was ready to go, and then donned their white Sokol launch and entry suits. At 8:53 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time, the hooks on the Soyuz spacecraft were opened, and it undocked from the station, taking with it Jessica Meir in the left seat as Board Engineer 1, Drew Morgan in the right seat as Board Engineer 2, and commander of the spacecraft, Oleg Skripochka, in the center seat.
And it's going to be at 07:14:32.
The Soyuz performed a successful separation burn 1, making it depart faster from the International Space Station, and now it's approaching that 19-mile distance necessary for it to execute the deorbit burn. That'll slow the Soyuz down by about 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of Earth's orbit and re-enter the atmosphere. As the Soyuz departed tonight, at the moment of undocking, Expedition 63 officially began aboard the International Space Station with NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy as the commander, joined by Roscosmos cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner, this crew having just arrived last week on the Soyuz MS-16 vehicle. They will be aboard until later this year in October. For a look at how tonight's events will unfold, let's take a look at this animation. Earlier, we saw the undocking of the spacecraft from the Zvezda module at 8:53 p.m. Central Time. The next thing is that deorbit burn, scheduled for 11:22 p.m. Central Time this evening. That burn will last 4 minutes and 41 seconds, dropping the Soyuz out of orbit and into the Earth's atmosphere. At 11:50, the three portions of the Soyuz will pyrotechnically separate, and the descent module will have its heat shield forward to the direction of travel, protecting the crew from the heat buildup reaching about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Once the crew is out of the plasma regime, a series of parachutes will open. First 2 pilot parachutes and then a drogue chute, and last the main chutes that will guide the spacecraft down in a 15-minute descent. Just about 2 seconds before the crew touches down on the steppe of Kazakhstan, there will be a soft engine firing, slowing it down just a bit more for a softer landing. The Soyuz will land about 92 miles southeast of the town of Zvezda. A reduced number of NASA personnel are supporting landing, some who were in Kazakhstan last week to support the Soyuz launch and were joined by a small NASA team that flew in on the Gulfstream plane to the city of Kizlyurta in central Kazakhstan. Because the airport in Karaganda, which is the normal staging location, was closed by Kazakhstan authorities, the Russian search and recovery forces reworked landing logistics and decided to stage landing operations with helicopters at the airport in Baikonur, since they were already there to support launch last week in event of a contingency. The NASA team has departed Baikonur and actually is in Zvezda, having departed earlier on helicopters. Tonight there will be 8 helicopters deployed. 2 are dispatched to the ballistic landing site east of Baikonur, and 6 are in Zvezda refueling, and they'll prepare to depart soon for the landing site, about a 35-minute flight. And an update, those helicopters are actually already en route to the landing site. They'll be arriving in a racetrack fashion, making an oval around the landing site and then landing sequentially once the capsule has landed. 2 Antonov fixed-wing aircraft are employed. One is in the area of the ballistic site, and the other, as we mentioned earlier, is already en route from Baikonur to the landing site. It will serve as sort of a command and control center between the spacecraft back to Russian mission control personnel. That'll relay voice and data from the Soyuz to the flight controllers at their mission control center, and it will be able to pick up that data from Soyuz once it is in range. After landing, the crew will return by Russian helicopters to the recovery staging city in Baikonur, which is about a 2.5-hour flight. And this is where the crew will split up after 6 months in orbit together. The NASA crew will move to ground transportation for about a 3-hour ride to the airport in Kizlyurta, where they will board a NASA plane located there for a flight back to Ellington Field in Houston. Skripochka will stay in Baikonur, where he will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, or GCTC, aircraft in Baikonur to return to his home in Star City, Russia. We're expecting good weather for landing today at about 61 degrees Fahrenheit with clear skies and some winds from the southeast. A nice welcome home for this crew that has spent so much time in space. Yesterday, Jessica Meir spoke about the extensive measures NASA has taken to ensure the safety of the landing team and, of course, the crew. Listen in to learn a little bit more about all the preparations for their return trip to Earth.
Yeah, this situation has dramatically affected our plans. NASA has done an incredible job. Our support people on the ground have been working very hard to figure out even how to come pick us up. So as you know, we launched in the Soyuz spacecraft from Baikonur in Kazakhstan, and we land in Kazakhstan as well. So normally what happens is a NASA aircraft comes over to pick us up and gets us back to Houston within 24 hours. But of course, even getting that NASA aircraft over there with all the international stops involved has been quite an effort. And we're taking a different path. It's going to be kind of like a planes, trains, and automobiles scenario where I think we're going to even end up riding in an ambulance for several hours across the Kazakh steppe in order to get to our airplane. So it'll be a little bit different than normal, but this is the first time landing for both me and my crewmate Drew Morgan, so we don't really have anything to compare it to. It'll just be the way that it is for us. Once we get home, normally we have, a little bit of a quarantine period, which has been a little bit soft in the past in terms of we can still kind of go about our daily routine. But because one of the hallmarks of spaceflight physiologically is actually a dysregulation of our immune system, we actually can come back potentially a bit immunocompromised. So of course that makes everybody at NASA concerned, and they want to make sure that they keep us safe and healthy. So we'll have a more strict quarantine this time where we'll be actually staying and living at NASA for at least a week after we land with very limited access to make sure that, that we remain healthy as well.
NASA astronaut Andrew Morgan actually launched on July 20th, 2019, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 lunar landing. Today, he, Jessica Meir, and Alex Grapochka land 50 years to the day of the Apollo 13 safe landing. In 1970, 50 years ago, the crisis was in space as flight controllers worked to bring the Apollo 13 crew safely home. 50 years later, things are a little more difficult on this side of the atmosphere as we navigate life during a pandemic. In both circumstances, we are united worldwide as we work to move forward to better days.